Hello everybody and welcome back to 60-Second Stats, statistics in 5 minutes or less. Though to be fair, for today only, I'm going to change the name a bit. We're going to call this one 10-Minute Stats because while I typically aim to make these videos 5 minutes or less, this topic is a little bit heavier and is going to take us a little bit longer, but I promise to keep it under 10. So welcome to video 5 for chapter 1, where we're going to talk about variable levels of measurement. Let's get started. So far, we have talked about two main types of variables, qualitative variables and quantitative variables. We know that qualitative variables allow for classification of individuals based on some quality, attribute, category, or characteristic. These can also be called categorical variables. Sometimes this means we're dealing with numbers, but if that's the case, when we add or subtract those numbers, there's no meaningful value. There's also quantitative variables. They provide numerical measures of individuals. The values of quantitative variables can be added or subtracted to provide meaningful results. We also learned that there are two different types of quantitative variables. Discrete quantitative variables have a finite number of possible values or a countable number of possible values. So we think of whole numbers when we're thinking about discrete variables, whereas continuous variables have an infinite number of possible values, and they can be measured to any desired level of accuracy. Here we're thinking of real numbers, whole numbers, and fractions and decimals. There are 4 levels of measurement for our variables. 2 that deal with qualitative variables and 2 that deal with quantitative variables. Let's take a look at each. The first is the nominal level, and here we're dealing with a qualitative variable. So at this level, we're categorizing variables according to qualitative labels and names, but there's no order or hierarchy here and no numerical value. For example, hair color. We can categorize hair color, red hair, blonde hair, brown hair, gray hair, but there's no hierarchy here. Maybe we think there is, but there's no one hair color that's better than the other. So this is at the nominal level. The second level of measurement for a qualitative variable is called the ordinal level. At this level, we are still categorizing variables according to labels and names, but now there is an order or hierarchy. For example, income, right? We've still categorized low income, medium income, high income, but now there's a hierarchy. Order matters, right? Low income is the lowest, medium's in the middle, and high income is the highest. So there is a hierarchy, which puts it at the ordinal level. Third comes the interval level. This is our first quantitative variable level. We're dealing with a numerical scale, and again, we have labels and orders. But our order is with a known evenly spaced continuous interval between each of the values. Another really important aspect at this level is that there's no true zero. What that means is that 0 does not denote an absence of something, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Also at this level, addition and subtraction can be meaningful. So for example, temperature is a variable that's at the interval level, because the difference between 10 degrees and 20 degrees is exactly the same as the difference between 30 degrees and 40 degrees. So we have an evenly spaced continuous interval between each of the values. Again, we really want to pay attention to, does 0 have meaning? Well, 0 degrees, that doesn't mean that there's nothing. It doesn't mean that temperature goes away. It just means it's really, really cold. So it doesn't denote an absence. It just means it's cold outside. That's why it gets put at the interval level. However, at the last level, and our second quantitative variable level, is the ratio level. And this is exactly the same as the interval level, only 0 does denote an absence. There is a true 0 here. 0 is absolute. Ratio data can never have a negative value because 0 is the end of the line. Whereas at the interval level of measurement, we can have negative values, like -2 degrees. Also at the ratio level, all operations can be meaningful for statistical analysis. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division can all be meaningful. For example, age in years, right? Let's think about this in terms of that true 0. If we're 0 years old, that's an absence of age, right? And we can't have a negative 2-year-old. That's meaningless. So that's what we mean when we talk about a true 0. At the ratio level, there is a true 0. At the interval level, there isn't. Here's a visual hierarchy for your consideration. It shows how each of the levels build on each other and the differences. Take a moment, pause the video, and take a look. Let's try applying what we've learned to determine the level of measurement for different variables. We're going to do this by asking ourselves a series of 2 questions in order to figure out which level we're at. So the first question we're going to ask is the variable qualitative or quantitative? Let's take a look at our first example, the number of vending machines in a school. Well, that's a number, and it's a number with meaning. So I know it's definitely a quantitative variable, which means it's either at the interval or ratio level of measurement. How do I figure out which one it is, though? Well, I ask myself my second question. Is there a true 0? Because that's the big difference between interval and ratio level. Does 0 have meaning? So 0, vending machines, means there's no vending machines. That's an absence. So there is a true 0 here, which means it's got to be at the ratio level. Our next variable is whether or not the school has a closed campus policy during lunch. Well, if I went around and surveyed schools and I asked them this question, they would give me a yes or a no answer, which means this is definitely a qualitative variable. If it's a qualitative variable, we know it's either at the nominal or ordinal level of measurement. So how do we figure it out? We ask ourselves this second question. Are we dealing with rank and order? Because that's what distinguishes the nominal and the ordinal level. Nominal, we're not dealing with rank and order, and ordinal, we are. Well, is this yes or no answer going to be dealing with rank or order? No, not at all. So this is definitely at the nominal level. Now let's think about class rank, right? Are you a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior? Well, that's definitely not a number, so it's a qualitative variable. So I need to figure out, is this at the nominal or ordinal level? So I'm going to ask myself my second question. Are we dealing with rank and order? Well, it's right in the name, class rank, right? There's a hierarchy there, which means we're at the ordinal level of measurement. Finally, let's take a look at our last variable, student year of birth. Well, that's definitely a number. So when I ask myself, is the variable qualitative or quantitative, I know it's quantitative. It's either at the interval or ratio level. I need to ask myself my second question in order to figure out which. Is there a true 0? Well, year 0 doesn't mean an absence of a year, it just means year 0. So there is not a true 0, which means we're at the interval level of measurement. If you're anything like me, you're probably wondering, why are these scales important, right? Why did I have to learn so many vocabulary words regarding different types of variables and different levels? Well, it's because they inform how the data can be analyzed using descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. And guys, that's what it's all about. Descriptive statistics summarizes the characteristics of a data set, and inferential statistics allows us to make insights and compare and draw conclusions from data sets. That's the whole reason why we do statistical analysis in the first place. So these scales are really important because they tell us what different types of tests and distributions and tendencies and variabilities we can look at among data. If you'd like to know more about different examples, pause the video and take a look at what's provided below. Be sure to check out the Kahoot to review the levels of measurement. Reach out with questions and have fun.